Yo, it's your boy rydollaz, and you know what time it is. Season 19 dropped, and I'm back with another tier list video for you guys. We have quite a few changes to the landscape of the ever-evolving Legend meta that I'm going to get into, including a new addition to the Apex Legends roster. If you've been waiting on this video, I apologize, and I appreciate your patience. Being a content creator is hard! I will say though, it's getting more and more difficult to make these tier lists because, in my opinion, the Legend balancing is getting better and better. And my whole thing has been ranking every Legend with pro tips, but there are 25 Legends now, and it just doesn't feel sustainable. But if you want me to do an in-depth guide on any specific Legend, let me know in the comments, would love to hear from you. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to hit that sub button because it really helps out the channel. You know the vibes. As always, I'll preface by saying my tier list is entirely subjective and are my opinions, and I'm not trying to offend anyone by not placing your main in S tier. And while I'm considering each Legend's utility and ranked, this is not an Apex competitive tier list. All that being said, hope you enjoy the video. Let's get into it. So for me, Ballistic is the worst Legend in the current meta. Maybe that's a hot take, and in some LTMs and mixtape he's actually quite good. But when it comes to his impact on win rate and his overall utility, I feel like his kit is pretty lackluster and underwhelming. A lot is made about Ash's arc snare being underpowered and not useful, but in my opinion, Ballistic's smart bullet is even worse. His passive ability of being able to holster a third weapon sounds a lot nicer on paper than the actual utility it provides in a regular BR match, and really you're just carrying it around to use it for his ult. To be fair, his ult is actually quite good and makes him pretty fun in spurts, but to only be playing a character for a single ability with a 2-minute cooldown leaves a lot to be desired. Next up in D tier, I have Lifeline. I'll reiterate that I don't think there are any blatantly bad Legends in the game right now, which is a good thing, but it says something if the rumors are true and she's the next Legend receiving a rework similar to Revenant Reborn last season. She benefits from having the smallest hitbox in the game and from being in the support class, but all of her abilities are simply outclassed at this point by the abilities of other Legends on the roster. That being said, she does have her utility in certain in-game situations, in poverty runs, and in battles of attrition. And we're coming off her being super busted in the 3 strikes LTM, so maybe people will clap back at this take. But in regular pubs and ranked where you can't be rezzed that quickly, too often I feel it's just a miserable situation of Lifeline baiting her teammates trying to clutch a fight, as opposed to it serving the purpose of actually getting her down teammates up and healthy. Hopefully the rumored rework comes sooner than later because, in my opinion, she's the Legend most deserving and in the most need of TLC. This might be another hot take, but the next Legend I have in D tier is Seer. How the mighty have fallen, and the fall from grace has been insane to bear witness to. I'm sure we can all agree. It's like the whole how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll pop, except it's how many nerfs does it take to make a Legend borderline unplayable. He just doesn't strike the same type of fear into opposing players as he once did, and his utility has been severely capped by recent nerfs to his kit, only being able to toss his ult 15 meters instead of 50, and only displaying enemies with a heartbeat tracker if they're moving or firing their weapon. His Q now won't cancel opponents being rezzed or opponents trying to heal, and will instead silence them and stun them for a mere half second. And because it's possible to dodge his exhibit scan, it makes Bloodhound a better recon choice overall because their scan can't be evaded. I don't usually incorporate Legend pick rate into my tier list rankings, but I will this one time. There's a reason why his pick rate percentage is a mere 0.7%. Closing out D tier, I have Mirage. I had him ranked higher in my previous tier list, and he's in a much better spot since Respawn incorporated the class system and then moved him from the skirmisher class to the support class. But I'm being more stern in my rankings this season, so I apologize if this disappoints some Mirage mains. Similarly to Lifeline, we're coming off the Post Malone event where his Invisares went super hard, and he's one of the most fun Legends to play on the roster overall. However, I feel that's as far as his team utility goes. His tactical and ultimate abilities are self-beneficial, and while you can get quite creative to bamboozle your opponents, his ceiling is a little limited as it currently stands. Moving on to Legends I have ranked in C tier this season, we have Octane. Unlike Seer, who feels underwhelming and in my opinion isn't super fun to play, Octane is the opposite. He's arguably the most fun Legend to play, has a very simple kit that is beginner friendly but also possesses a high skill ceiling. For most players, it's easy to fall into stereotypical Octane playstyle habits, pushing ahead of your team and being the first to go down, but when played correctly he can actually be quite effective. His greatest strength as far as overall impact on winning is survivability. If you're an Octane main, it's important to try to be the last one up on your squad, so if the situation calls for it, your squad can get a reset. And if you're an aspiring movement player, there may be no better pick on the roster that is better for that playstyle. Next up, I have Vantage. Last season, I got a lot of pushback from Vantage mains about how I ranked her with comments such as, "If you know, you know." To those people, I say peep the Vantage content. I do know, and I'm a better Vantage player than most of you. Like Ash, I consider myself a Vantage truther, and I had been on my soapbox vying for her in previous seasons. And while this tier list is entirely subjective in my opinions, I try to be as objective as possible. In the right hands and when played correctly, she can feel OP. And with the buff she received, an extra bullet in her ultimate sniper's mark, that definitely makes a bigger difference than most of the community thinks for Vantage gamers. What works against her though, is that her kit is entirely predicated on her hitting shots. If you're having an off day or simply not hitting shots, then she's borderline useless. What also works against her is that as the game progresses, she becomes less and less effective, especially in close quarters, not to mention a larger hitbox that you have to account for. As it stands though, she's super fun to play, good for solo queuing, and with the recon class as a whole not being the strongest at the moment, you could do worse than running Vantage this season. As much as it pains me, I had to be honest, and I apologize in advance to all my Ashe mains. She's the next legend I have in C tier this season. I've been on my soapbox vying for her for quite a few seasons now, and I still believe that she's underrated and slept on. I don't usually watch other legend tier lists before I make my own, but I have seen other creators rank her at the bottom of their tier list, which I vehemently disagree with. However, the time has come. She needs a couple buffs and maybe even a rework to be viable in the current landscape of the meta. For starters, she should be able to scan death boxes of enemies she or her team kills to find the rest of their team. Her tactical should be a one-handed ability. I don't know why it isn't. And her ult needs a quality of life update similar to Pathfinder Zipline where you can zoom in on the targeted location to get better clarity on where you're teleporting. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree, and what changes you would like to see to Ashe's kit to make her more competitive. Next up in C tier I have Rampart. Compared to other legends in the controller class, where she shines in my opinion is defending open space with minimal cover. But where she's not as effective is defending a building, which is where other legends in her class perform better. She recently received a quality of life update where she can now deploy her amp covers more quickly than before, which is a W. And with the L-Star back on the floor, there's now a super viable weapon that takes advantage of her passive ability, which is another huge plus for her this season. A tip I have for aspiring Rampart gamers is to get comfortable alternating between placement and attack mode, because it's easy to get stuck menuing with how her kit operates. All things considered, she's a difficult legend to master with a high skill ceiling. In the right hands though, she'd be ranked much higher than where she falls on my tier list. She's underrated in terms of versatility and is a strong meta counter pick. Closing out C tier, I have Mad Maggie. Honestly, I love Maggie's kit, and she's so much fun to play. I would even go as far as to say she's a buff or two away from being meta, but as it currently stands, she's become slightly underrated. As a certified PK gamer, her passive ability does the most for me. She gets no movement penalty when running with a shotgun out, and she gets a speed boost on her ADS with shotguns as well as a highlight on damaged enemies for 0.8 seconds. Her passive riot drill might be her best ability though, all things considered. What hurts her though, is her ultimate being incredibly inconsistent and unreliable. It feels like a 50-50 chance whenever you wrecking ball of it doing what you want it to versus it doing what it wants to. All things considered, however, there are definitely times whether I'm playing Maggie myself or have her as my teammate where she doesn't offer as much utility as I would like. But something to keep in mind if you're a Maggie gamer, the only way is through. I would suggest not playing her if you're going to play passively, just saying. Starting off legends I have ranked in B tier with a bit of a hot take, I have Crypto. In my opinion, he's the most difficult legend to play and master on the roster, and he's not necessarily the most fun legend to play either. General pace of play is also something that works against him and his kit, and it's really easy for him to fall behind or not coordinate EMP pushes correctly to really maximize his potential. So for these reasons, I have him ranked at the bottom of B tier. That being said, in the right hands, I think he has the potential to be as high as A or even S tier, and the best recon legend overall. He's literally the ultimate counter pick, being a direct foil to most legends' abilities. And with the respawn buff that was added this season, for better or for worse, that's a massive buff to Crypto as well. Food for thought. Moving on, we have Caustic. The Gas Daddy needs no introduction at this point, and by nature of his kit, he's incredibly effective no matter what the landscape of the meta is. To be honest, I have a lot of fun whenever I run Caustic, and would probably play him more if there wasn't such a stigma around Caustic and people who play him. No flame, he's really annoying to play against, but it's incredibly fun being the oppressor. He's very forgiving and in my opinion a really good choice for newer players or players struggling against the sweaty ball TTV wraiths. And fun fact for all my roller demons out there, you do get aim assist through his gas, unlike Bank Smoke. Unfortunately, World's Edge and King's Canyon, his two best maps, aren't currently in rotation, and he doesn't play as well in open space as he does in buildings. But his endgame value is incredible, and his ability to defend a building is second to none. Fuse is the next legend I have ranked in B tier. Now I'll be honest, last season I had him as my lowest ranked legend, which I'll admit was an L take. I'll take the L. This season I have him ranked firmly in B tier, which some might still consider to be too low, but I stand by it. Once again, this is not an Apex competitive tier list. I am aware that he's currently being utilized by a lot of pro teams. My rebuttal to that is that pro play is so far and away different than anything most of us are accustomed to. Without going too far in depth, there's a lot of complex tactics involving positioning and micro rotations, and not a lot of opportunities for kills and looting. So in that environment, Fuse's abilities are so incredibly useful for farming shields and griefing opposing teams as you progress through the match to endgame. But in regular pubs and ranked, he's only situationally effective and is limited by a lack of mobility and a lower skill ceiling than other legends on the roster. Next up, I have Bloodhound. With Bangalore rising to the top of the legend meta in the last couple of seasons, I feel that the title of most balanced legend is now theirs. Unlike Seer, Bloodhound doesn't feel underwhelming to play and is pretty user-friendly, making them the strongest overall recon choice in the current legend meta. What has really hurt them as of late is the full body scan from their tactical ability Eye of the Allfather only lasting for 1 second, and their ultimate not providing a faster cooldown to that ability. I had been saying scans will always be meta, but somehow they aren't anymore. I'm not complaining, but W respawn in this instance for making Bloodhound viable, but not a must pick. The last legend in B tier is Gibraltar. If you've been following this channel for a while, you probably know my thoughts on the current cooldown of his ultimate versus Bangalore's. If not, I think it's wild that his ult has a 3-minute cooldown now versus Bangalore's now having a 4-minute cooldown, but if you're a Gibby main or considering running Gibby this season, that's a noteworthy recent change that makes him really interesting. I think the devs are really trying to push Gibby, but I think the days of him being a staple meta legend are behind us, and it'll take much more to make him a must pick. His bubble is directly countered by Mad Maggie and Crypto, not Seer anymore though, which is also noteworthy, and his unique selfless playstyle is difficult to master, but he's a tank and still incredibly strong when played correctly. Starting off A tier, I have Valkyrie. Like some other legends, it's been wild bearing witness to her fall from grace as well. I apologize in advance to the Valk truthers, she's still strong, just nowhere near where she once was. The addition of evac towers as well as various nerfs to her ultimate ability have the community looking for utility elsewhere. I did receive some feedback on one of my previous tier lists from a Valk main that I'll share with you guys. Just because evac towers are a part of the game now doesn't eliminate her utility. You can fly up a spare evac solo and fly around as scout and get scans on enemies if there are any, which is true and a fair point. Sadly though, I think we've all developed a new skill of shooting people moving up or across zips, or even people launching in a Valk ult and flying in the air, so her ult is not as much of a get out of jail free card as it once was. I will say though, if you're a controller player, her passive opens up a lot of movement potential, and there's a reason a lot of pro roller demons main or used to main Valk. Moving on, I have Newcastle. I've noticed that in the past few seasons, he's become pretty polarizing. Some creators and pros have him as high as S tier, while others have him as low as B or C tier. In my opinion, he's the second most difficult legend to master after Crypto, and because of this barrier to entry, I think the bottom of A tier is fair. He received a couple quality of life updates with the new season with reduced recovery time upon landing with his ultimate and also an increase to his max leap height. These updates to his ultimate ability are good, but where his kit shines are with his passive ability Retrieve the Wounded and his tactical ability Mobile Shield. To be honest, I wish I was better with him because his skill ceiling is sky high with game breaking potential. Above Newcastle, I have Revenant. He's still in a really good spot even after taking some nerfs following his rework last season. The time extension window on his ultimate from Nox was reduced from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. The time extension window on assists was reduced from 30 seconds to 3 seconds. And extra damage to the Shroud will bleed through to Revenant if it breaks. Even with those changes, he's still pretty OP in my opinion. And with the movement potential his passive and tactical abilities provide, he's definitely a game changer and very fun to frag on. A couple tips I have are to be mindful of his larger hitbox, and also be mindful of the fact that you're not invincible when in his ult. Moving on, I have Wraith as my next legend in A tier. She also received a quality of life update this season with a reduction to the look time required to trigger her passive ability to, allegedly, make it feel more reliable and consistent. You sure about that? Jokes aside, her passive ability is not what has made her the most popular legend since the game launched 4.5 years ago. Her tactical ability is an actual get out of jail free card and keeps her viable in almost every season. Why I don't have her ranked higher is because even though her ultimate ability does have the potential to help your squad in various in-game scenarios, I feel the legends I have ranked above her provide more team utility overall. That being said, she remains incredibly viable, and you can do much worse than maining her this season in my opinion. Making her debut this season firmly in A tier is the newest addition to the Apex roster, Conduit. I thought about this one for a while and it was pretty tough, but my thoughts are that she's a W overall. I love what her kit provides in terms of having a pseudo controller class ability as a support legend. Not to mention her Q that temporarily regenerates shields and her passive which gives you a speed boost in order to catch up to your team. Lord knows I need that. She's designed to help you and your squad stay healthy in fights longer, which is incredibly useful, and a tip I have is, if your shield is being regenerated by Conduit Q, don't waste time popping shields because that essentially defeats the purpose. Capitalize on the time saved and get back into the fray. And if you're running Conduit, try and wait for moments where both of your teammates need a shield regen to pop your Q to maximize its value. If you haven't tried her yet this season, I definitely recommend. With the playstyle that she promotes, she's incredibly fun and very helpful to any squad. Edging out Conduit and closing out legends I have ranked in A tier this season is Watson. Maybe another hot take, but I'm a firm believer in what Watson contributes to any squad, and I'm sure we can all agree we've been seeing a lot more aspiring Watson players in our games as of late. As a controller class legend, she can scan ring consoles for intel on the location of the next ring, which is essential for zone teams. And not only is she right up there with Caustic in terms of ability to defend a building, she also excels in defending open spaces or spaces with minimal cover with what her kit provides. Sure, she might not be as versatile as Catalyst, Rampart, or even Conduit, but what she does well, she does really well. And for those that are questioning why I'm not ranking Conduit higher because of her Energy Barricade ultimate, yes, while that does serve as a Watson fence type effect that's harder to destroy, it's only temporary. A pro tip I'll leave you guys with though is that Watson and Conduit pair really well together in any team comp. Just saying. Moving on to legends I have ranked in S tier, which I consider to be unequivocally the best legends in the game this season. You know the drill. I'll preface with the order I've ranked them is subjective, and I say that because I believe there's a case that can be made for each of them being the best in the game. That being said, the first legend I have ranked in S tier this season is Loba. Luke Goblins rejoice! She pretty much falls in the same spot as last season, and she's my top ranked support class legend. And if you're primarily solo queuing ranked games, there may be no better option on the roster in my opinion. If your team is in need of a reset, or if you're running around buying time trying to find a Moby, Loba's Black Market comes in clutch. But even if you're not, having better loot than your opponents in itself is a huge competitive advantage. Plus it just feels way better shooting an R9 clip with 27 bullets as opposed to 17. Next up is Pathfinder. He's had a meteoric rise back into the legend meta over the past few seasons because as it stands, he's the best movement and team movement legend in Apex. While he does suffer from having a large hitbox and a high skill floor, the payoff is definitely worth it as his grapple opens up style opportunities that simply aren't possible on any other legend. He received a quality of life update this season where even if a teammate that also has the skirmisher perk scans a care package, Pathfinder can still scan it, which charges his ultimate to 100%. Huge W. With the amount of ziplines you can create to help you and your teammates traverse the map quickly, it definitely helps keep the pace up in order to drop those big games. Though a wise man once told me, with great power comes great responsibility. The next legend I have in S tier this season is Catalyst. Catalyst was added back in season 15, so it's been a minute, but it feels like we've been knee deep in Catalyst goop ever since. Time flies when you're a piece of shit. She received a couple nerfs this season. The core of her piercing spike's tactical ability no longer blocks projectiles. There can only be 2 deployed at a time instead of 3, and the throw range was decreased by about 50%. Additionally, her ultimate ability only lasts for 25 seconds instead of 30. After playing her for a bit, these nerfs feel reasonable to me. I think you just have to be more proactive about repositioning the 2 in-world piercing spikes you have deployed. She's still my top ranked controller class legend this season because of her overall versatility compared to other legends in her class. She's great at knock recovery, great for micro rotates, a decent scout, great at sieging, and her endgame value is insane as well. When you add all these things up, it becomes extremely difficult to choose any controller class legend over Catalyst. Moving on to the next legend I have at the top of the legend meta this season, Horizon. She was my top ranked legend at the start of last season, but along the way she received a couple of nerfs as we all are probably aware. But for those that don't know, her weapon accuracy while using her grav lift was reduced. They reduced the speed of her lift by 20%, and the hover time at the top of the lift was reduced to half a second, down from 2 seconds. But after playing her a little bit myself and adjusting to these changes, yeah, she's still insane. In my opinion, no legend feels better to play, and there's no better legend at teamfighting than Horizon. Closing out S tier and my top ranked legend this season is Bangalore. Ayo, shout out all my fellow day one bang mains. We didn't deserve these nerfs. What happened to the most balanced legend? What happened to not worth playing when you could play Gibraltar instead? Man, now everybody wants to play Bangalore. Bangalore is cool now. I'll be real, I thought it was over. No way she survives a minute increase to her ultimate cooldown, a reduction to stun duration from her ultimate, a second reduction to her double time passive, and a 5-second reduction to the lifetime of her smokes. Right? Right? Jokes aside, she's still at the top of the legend meta and a borderline must pick in any squad. Her best maps are the ones currently in rotation, and even with all the aforementioned and undeserved nerfs to her kit, she's still playable. Fake Bangalore mains say she feels the same. I disagree. But she definitely feels like a pro athlete coming back from an ACL. Not as athletic as she once was, but still a force to be reckoned with. As always, if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. At the end of the day, these are just my opinions, and this video should only serve as a guideline. You should play who you find fun and play who you like. Any legend is S tier in the right hands. Let me know in the comments who you're maining this season, and to change it up, let me know who your least favorite legend to go up against is. Hopefully this tier list helps you, and I'll see you in the next one.